Paranormal in Pennsylvania may discuss topics such as suicide, murder, and other potentially upsetting things. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, and welcome to Paranormal in Pennsylvania,
where we discuss history and hauntings.
Today's story takes us to Old City, Philadelphia. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Erica.
Let's get into it. All right, so Old City, Philadelphia. We've been there countless times.
Yes.
Countless haunts. We have City Tavern, we have Christchurch Burial Grounds, Independence Hall, Hill Physic House.
That street.
Elfris Alley.
Yes.
I'm the Mashulu.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I'm sure I'm missing more. But you could throw a stone in Philly and hit something that's haunted, so who's surprised? Today, we have allegedly the most haunted house in Philadelphia.
Really?
I know.
That's so crazy.
I know. It has that reputation, and we can decide at the end whether or not we think it really is the most haunted, especially because we have covered other houses like the Hill Physic House. This is the Powel House.
Okay.
So let's start with the history. Powel House did not begin as the Powel House. It actually was built by Charles Stedman, who was a merchant located in Philadelphia. It was built in 1765. It was later sold to the Powels, Samuel and Elizabeth, just 4 years later in 1769. So this predates independence.
Yeah, I was going to say that is pretty old.
Yeah, very old. And I think, that's part of what makes Philadelphia so haunted is there's so much history there, and it's so much significant history.
Yeah, yes. The eastern part of the U.S. is always going to be the most, in my opinion, some of the most concentrated haunted places because that's where everybody landed.
Right. Right, and all the battles and stuff.
Yes.
When the Powells took it over, they did a huge remodel because they wanted it to be fit for their social gatherings.
Of course. As that is the most important part of a house buying situation.
It really is. I just think that's so funny. But they were known as socialites, and they were known for their friendship specifically with the founding fathers.
Oh, okay. See, now I get it. Because if I had to host the founding fathers, then yes, I too would build a whole house around hosting the founding fathers.
But the thing is, at this time, they were just rebels.
Oh, true. True.
Think of the story of Tonight Hamilton.
Right, yeah.
And they were especially friends with Washington and Franklin. And Samuel was so well connected that he became mayor of Philadelphia in 1775. So I think the social gatherings actually do make sense, as funny as it is to me that that's the reason they remodeled their home.
Yeah, when you said socialites, I was almost like, oh yeah, that was a thing. Sometimes you were just a socialite. That was your job.
Mm-hmm.
And, obviously because you already had money or because your other business that was making you money was basically running by itself. But yeah, people were just like socialites.
Yeah, I'm still trying to be a modern day socialite and it's still failing.
I just want to hang out all day. That sounds great.
Unfortunately, the yellow fever outbreak in Philadelphia in the late 1700s claimed Samuel's life, and he died in 1793. So less than 20 years after he becomes mayor, we see him die. But Elizabeth lived in the house another 5 years as a widow.
Okay.
She then sold it in 1798 to William Bingham, who was a senator. So it has a big history of political significance, and I wonder if it's proximity to the Capitol and also because it was such a big house, you had to have some sort of wealth to purchase it.
That also makes sense. Yeah. Your first theory of it just being Philly, that's where a lot of these people were really centered. So I guess that makes sense. And then, yeah, I don't know what the prices were of every time it was sold, but I can't imagine it would be cheap, especially as time goes on. And this is we do start recognizing these people as the founding fathers.
Right.
And
I was thinking also, I don't think it was get a real estate agent to find a house. Back in those days, it was either build a house or if you know someone. So I think that's probably why, because it's being passed down through people that have power and know each other well.
That makes a lot of sense. I don't think I really ever considered the house buying process before real estate agents, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's if you know someone, you have an in, but I don't know. I haven't actually looked into that. Over the next century, the house changed hands many, many times, and it was eventually transitioned to a commercial space. It was almost demolished in 1931, which is sad, but the Philadelphia Society for Preservation of Landmarks helped to preserve the house, and it now functions as a museum that you can tour.
We love historical societies, saving the demolitions.
I know, and I will say, when I toured Hill Physic House for, I think, either a season 2 or 3 episode, I asked the tour guide there, and I said, hey, we came here because it's haunted, and she said, oh my God, you should go to Powel House.
Oh, okay. So maybe its reputation will be, it stands out as like the greatest haunting that we've covered yet.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Okay, so given the historical significance, you can expect historically significant ghosts, because think, it's the founding fathers, who are they mixing with, etc. One of the named ghosts that has been identified is Peggy Shippen, which probably doesn't mean much to anyone unless they're a historian, but she's also known as Peggy Arnold, the wife of Benedict Arnold.
Oh, I was going to say Peggy Arnold sounds familiar.
Yeah. For those that might not know, Benedict Arnold was known for treasonous acts in the Revolutionary War. We do have some listeners that aren't from America, so they might not know that. And honestly, even Americans might not know that.
Right.
The full body apparition of Peggy is seen in the dancing area of the house, so the drawing room.
So Peggy didn't live here?
No.
That's really interesting to me. I guess, that's how we know that the socialite reputation of the Powels was really prominent, because if people are spending their afterlife in their house and they didn't even live there, that's huge.
Yeah. She is said to appear wearing a lavender and beige ball gown from the Revolutionary War era, and people can identify her based on her image in paintings.
Oh, that's really cool. I always love when there's definitive, not even proof is the right word, but definitive accounts of people recognizing someone from a photo. That's huge.
Yeah, that makes it so legitimate to me. And apparently she frequented the house, so the haunting could make sense if she had a lot of positive memories there. But when she's seen, she's either walking around the drawing room or tapping her foot, which is interesting. Because walking around the drawing room, okay, that's fine. She's just socializing. Tapping her foot is interesting to me because I think it could be two things. She could either be tapping her foot to music, or she could be tapping her foot waiting for somebody.
Oh, that's a good point. Honestly, I think a way to test that is to go and then play music and see if that affects the haunting at all.
That would be interesting if she is normally walking, but you play music and she starts tapping her foot.
Yeah, because then you would know, okay, this is in relation to this. But that's a good point. Tapping your foot could also be an impatient thing.
Mm-hmm. She's said to fade really quickly after she's seen, which is interesting to me as well, because it's she's putting through enough energy to be spotted, but then she just fades away right away.
Yeah, okay. That is interesting. I wonder if it's well, okay, because people are spotting her, obviously. So it's almost like she appears, sees someone, and then she's like, whoops, and then goes back into...
That's funny. That could be the case.
Yeah.
Some say that Benedict Arnold is also seen in the house, and I think, again, this makes sense with the fact that they were socialites, it had significance to the Revolutionary War, and his wife is there.
That's what I was going to say. If his wife is choosing to spend her afterlife there, then it's almost all right, well, I guess I gotta be here too.
Right, and I think depending on if people buy into the theory that spirits can either travel or coexist in multiple spaces, it could make sense that this is one of the spaces that they choose to occupy.
Which I really like that theory. I like that you could kind of go where you want to go as a spirit.
Me too. Why not?
Right? I mean, if you're on Earth is what I was going to say, but I don't think that's very accurate at all. If you're here in your astral plane,
right?
Why not travel,
Yeah. Visitors have also reported apparitions of soldiers dressed in continental uniforms throughout the house. And within the house, they're seen on the main staircase, often dressed formally, which is interesting, but could be associated with the parties there.
That's what I was thinking, is maybe that's how they showed up to these events. Soirees.
Yeah, I just think the idea of formal dress uniforms for the Continental Army is really strange, because they wouldn't have had a lot of money.
Oh, that's a fair point.
But that was also really important back then, so it could make sense that they put extra effort into that. They're also seen outside of the home, sometimes entering through the front door, and people have noted that they actually float through the front door even though they seem to be marching. And that makes me wonder if this place has more significance in the war than we are led to believe.
Yeah. If there are soldiers there, especially in uniform, then it makes sense that that would be like a significant part of their, army history.
And I think what's additionally interesting is they're said to be led by the Marquis de Lafayette.
Oh my gosh!
I know.
Oh my
Everybody knows who
gosh.
that is now.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Which is historically accurate. And again, people have identified his ghost allegedly by looking at paintings. And I just think that's so cool because multiple people have the same report. And whether or not it's local legend or not, I just think it's super cool that you can see these really big names at this house.
Yeah. And I love that these are big names in pop culture,
Right. Like most people know Benedict Arnold. Anyone who's seen Hamilton knows Lafayette now.
Right.
So it's really cool to me that that's who is showing up.
Yeah.
And it could be that they're just rising to the top of the haunting discussion because they're so significant. But either way, I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, especially because it feels like these figures are like larger than life. It's almost like when we talked about Elvis. It's kind of interesting. If I were in that position and I saw Lafayette in like a spirit form, I would be like, me? Really?
Yeah.
Like the honor.
Right? Exactly. And I think it's interesting though, because if I saw Lafayette, I would not know what he looked like.
Also true, because I just know Lafayette as Daveed Diggs.
Exactly. Same. But somehow people must know. But I
Right.
feel like if I did see a ghost at this house, I would start looking up like historical figures to try to identify them. So.
Yes, especially like knowing.
Right. And then it'd be like, oh my gosh.
Right.
There are also generic hauntings there, and I'll start with auditory. There's the sound of footsteps, and I'm always skeptical of footsteps. It's important to note that it's not just floors creaking, but actual footsteps, which is different to me.
Yes.
Creaky floors in an old home are whatever.
Yeah.
Footsteps that are clear and distinct when there's no one else there definitely lean more towards paranormal.
Yeah, I agree. Because if you're on the bottom floor and you hear actual heels walking on top of you and there's no one else there, I mean, that's not really a sound that like an old building is just going to make.
Yeah, I agree. So they're heard throughout the house on the main and the top floor, but specifically in the basement, as if someone's walking on the first floor. And that makes a lot of sense because that's where most of the traffic would have been, because the upstairs of the home would have been private, but the main floor would have been where all the parties were.
Right. I'm wondering if like lesser known spirits are also spending their time there, just kind of like, just because they all were, it's like a big party in the afterlife. Like that would be kind of cool.
That's something I was wondering. Like the TV show Ghosts, which I feel like I reference all the time. Where everybody hangs out and they're friends. I wonder if it is the same here. Like it's like, oh, well, we're all ghosts, but we're still here to have a good time.
Yeah, and that would be really nice. It's possible that the lesser known ghosts, maybe someone sees a person out of the corner of their eye, or maybe even like, I don't know, like if they're not a historical figure, then there's not really a way for us to figure out who they were. And so that might just not get reported. And so it just might be that apparitions are kind of popping up all over the place. It's just no one really can put a name.
That's true, actually. And I think another interesting thing to think about would be, are there these, like you're saying, lesser hauntings? Even it doesn't have to be an apparition, a shadow figure. And people just aren't noting the shadow figures because they've seen Benedict Arnold and Marquis de Lafayette and the soldiers, and they're seeing these full body apparitions. So they're kind of letting go the idea of any lesser haunting.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
I think the footsteps could, of course, also be caused by Peggy and the soldiers, but, it could be anything.
Yeah, if the soldiers are meant to be marching in, then, I know that you had mentioned that they float through the door, but in a marching kind of formation, so.
Yeah. So it could be a bunch of different things. I think it would be cool to do an investigation here. They don't seem to be super open to it, but those are the hauntings I found. How do you feel about its claim now?
No, that's Gettysburg. Never mind. I was gonna... Man, I don't know what I was gonna say. Pennsylvania's a big state, people.
Yes, and we're on season 6.
Yeah, there's a lot of places. No, I actually... You know what? I kind of agree. I think because of the fact that I believe that there are lesser-known ghosts there, I sort of can lean into the claim that it might be the most haunted location, because I do think the other places that we've talked about are really specific, right? Like Benjamin Franklin haunts the cemetery, and Alexander Hamilton and the other guy, apologies, haunt the bank.
Stephen?
Yes.
I think.
Sorry, Stephen.
Literally on the episode, we're like, wow, and nobody even knows about who he is, but now we know, and now we don't know.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. You know, maybe write a musical about him, and then and then I'd know. But no, those two haunt the bank, you know what I mean? And so I think this might be one of those where, because I can believe that there are other hauntings there, that Yeah,
I agree. Now, would you visit this place?
Yeah, I would. I would do an investigation overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And I would stay overnight, I think. I would feel comfortable staying overnight in the house. I just think that trying to communicate more with maybe the lesser-known spirits would be really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we would need time to do that.
You would need time and the ability to do research, I think.
Yes.
To see who they could possibly be. But I would absolutely love to be here overnight. I think you almost have to be there at night, because that's when all the parties would have been.
Oh, yeah, that's a really fair point.
And I would be tempted to dress in colonial garb.
Ooh, I would do that.
Right? I just feel like, you know, when we were at Grand Midway Hotel in the bar and we knew that it was supposed to be ragtime ghosts there, we played ragtime music. I think however you can meet the ghosts where they are, you're much more likely to succeed, because that's why we talk about the history, right? We want them to be understood as people who had real lives, not just like, oh, spooky.
Yeah, and I also think like reaching out in that way shows kind of a sign of respect.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trying to relate to them and their culture.
Yeah, absolutely, and also a fun excuse to dress up.
Oh, agreed. I don't think I've ever worn colonial garb except one time at Dorney Park in Wildwater Kingdom when my sister and I dressed in like 1920s. It's not even colonial stuff, but 1920s things to take those like old fake Western photos.
Fun fact, me and my childhood best friend, we used to get those done every year at the beach. I have so many of those photos.
Cool.
Yeah, I used to be obsessed with them. We would dress in like the long dresses and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember holding like a gun in one of them and feeling so cool. And I was like, I did not understand the significance at that moment.
We weren't allowed to have gun, booze, or garters with money. That was the rules. And honestly, those were the rules up until we went to college. Like,
yeah.
They did not change. So we did like the ladies in the dresses with parasols and stuff and gloves.
That's so cute.
Yeah, we have a ton of them. I'll have to find them.
Yeah.
They're somewhere. But yeah, I think it would be cool to dress up, meet them where they are, do an investigation here. The historical context is super, super cool. This is definitely one that's on my to-do list, but I don't think they will let us do it.
Yeah, which I understand. I'm always understanding of that, and always want to be respectful, but it kind of stinks a little bit.
Yeah. So that is the history, followed by the many hauntings of the Powel House. Let us know your thoughts. Do you think this is the most haunted house in Philadelphia? And if not, what do you think is? If you've ever been and had a paranormal experience, let us know. And if you have a place that you want us to cover, you can reach out to us on social media, via email, smoke signal, however you can get to us, and we're happy to cover it. Tune in next Thursday to see what history and hauntings we discuss next. Stay spooky, my friends.